In this video, we'd like to make an HTML page and then have some corresponding JavaScript that performs a math trick, a certain math trick. Just some more interfacing, some more exposure to interfacing in HTML and JavaScript. So I'm making a new file. I had Visual Studio Code open. I had it open to a particular folder. I'm making a new file within that folder, giving it the HTML extension so it understands it's a web page. I'm going to do exclamation point, which gives me the Emmet abbreviation, gives me a boilerplate for this, and I'll just say math check and make a header, H1 header, and also say math check. And then I am going to, in this trick, we prompt the user to enter a 3-digit number. So let's do that. So let's make a label. Spell label correctly, label. Enter a 3-digit number. And then give a place for entering that number. So it's a number, so I'm going to use an input. I'm going to make it of the number type. And I want to extract that number and work with it. So I'm going to give it an ID. I usually say txt, I'll just say num. And now that I have the ID, I'm going to get the label, the for the label to work with the ID. And it should, the for of the label should match the ID of the input so that they work together as a team. And that's an accessibility thing. Okay, now in particular, we want a 3-digit number. So we could say now, do we want to allow, say, 052? Will we call that a 3-digit number? Now, if we just regularly wrote a 52, we wouldn't write the leading 0, and it wouldn't be a 3-digit number. So I'm going to sort of force us into a 3-digit number by making the number 100 or more, and 999 or less. You can do that with the input of the number type. It has a min attribute, so I can say that the minimum I'm going to allow is 100. It has a max property. Let's say the maximum is 999. And then I can say that the step is 1, which would be the normal step, but I could go by, say, 5s or something if I had some input that I wanted to sort of always be a multiple of 5 or something, then I could make the step 5. So let's just see what that does. I'm going to right click. I have the live server extension. There it is. There's my 3-digit number. I didn't put in a value, so it starts off as blank, but maybe I'll put in a value. And if I use the up arrow, I get to 100. Let's jump up to 980. And it stops. So if I'm using the up-down controls, I'm already out of the range. That's why it's yelling at me. I can't move up or down. I can move up from 9. Couldn't move down from 9, but if I had, so it forces me to that level. But you see, I can type things 98. So the up down arrows obey the max and the min. But if I were to type or probably paste or anything like that, then it's not obeying the limit. Okay, so we get some action by using the min and the max, but doesn't do the whole job. We'll have to do some work within JavaScript. Let me put in a break at that stage. Okay. And then the first thing we want to do if we have this number is we're going to say double it in quotes, but what we really mean is concatenate it with itself. So I'm going to have a button for that. So I'm going to have not an in-out, but an input. I'll give it an ID of button. I'll call it double. It's not really a double, but we'll talk about that. The value will be, okay, so now in the value, I would like to say double the number, but I would like to, use my scare quotes on double. And let's see if we can achieve that by combining single quotes and double quotes. So I'm going to use single quotes around the value, but then have double quotes within the single quotes, double the number like that. And then I want, what do I want? And on click, and I'll say that that's going to I'll call the function double. So I need to define that function. But first, when I double the number, I need a place to put the answer, and I'll put that in a span. And I'm going to put something in there, so I need to code it. So it needs an ID. And I'll call it SP double. And let me usually like to put some indication that something's coming there. So I'll do a dash, 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 and I'll do a break. Okay, so there we go. Oh, now let me put in a value. So if they click the button right away, there is some value in there. I'm going to say the value equals, what do I want? 345, some number to sort of give me a starting point. Okay. So there's a number, I click a button that says double. I'm going to be responsible for writing that function. So let's define the script area. Let's define a function. The name of the function was double, open, close parenthesis, open, close curly. And what are we going to do? We're going to get the number out of the box. We're going to quote double it and then display the answer. So let's say let num equal, go to the page, document, get element by ID. And we're going to, what did I call it? txt num. And I want its value. And so I get getting the value out of the box. We've discussed previously that even though this input is of the number type, what we get out of it as a variable is of the string type. So num will be of the string type. And so what we mean by double is really concatenated with itself. So if it were 345, I want 345, 345. And so I can just use the plus operator because num is a string. So if I take num and say, if I say num plus num being a string, it will concatenate it with itself, and I will get 345, 345. And then I want to display that. So I will take document, get element by ID, SP double. The SP double is not an input, but more of a display item. So it has an inner HTML. And then we want to say num plus num. That's not the same as 2 times num. 2 times num, the two and the times would force num to be interpreted as a number, and then we would get twice the number. In this case, what would that be? If it were 345, it would be 690. but num plus num with the plus operator overloaded, and num being a string will get the concatenation action. And so it should be 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. Let's see. So there's our 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. And we also see here we succeeded in getting the double quotes within the value of the button here by playing that game with the single quotes, double quotes within the single quotes. So that also worked. So we've just seen that. Okay, so far so good. So the next thing in the trick is to take that number that we just got and divide it by 13. So I'm going to have a button. So I'm going to have this sort of structure again, a button and a span. So I'm going to do some control copy, control paste, and now the button is divide 13, I'll say. The value will be divide above, I'll say, by 13, and I'll call the name of the function divide 13, and I'll call the SP here divide 13. Okay, and I owe a function. I'm going to make a little separator here as comment, and I owe a function called divide 13, open close parenthesis, open close curly. I owe that function. Okay. But what I want is I don't want to divide dash 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 by 13. That wouldn't make sense. So I want to force them to click this first button before they click the second button. So I do that by making the first button disabled. So I'm going to give it a disabled property. And I usually say disabled equals disabled. I think I could just get away with just saying disabled, but this is what I'm used to. And now we see that I can't click that button. But after I do double, that is when I would like to be able to click it. So I'm going to say document get element by ID button divide 13. Now I'd like to set its disabled property equal to false. I no longer want it to be disabled, so it will be enabled. And now when I click this, I do the doubling, and now I have, this is now enabled, so I can proceed with that function now that I have the proper thing. So there are two approaches at this time. Now, I previously doubled the number and put that answer in SP doubles inner HTML. And I can take two approaches. I can introduce a variable that's telling me what the number is at that stage. I'm going to have different stages as I operate on this number. And I can make that what we'll call a global variable that's known to all the functions. So I could do this. I could say, I don't know, result. And then here when I could say result equals num plus num. And then I could come down here and start working with the result and do something else to results. That's one approach. And then the other approach would be to go to SP doubles inner HTML and grab the number from that's on the page. And there are pluses and minuses of these two approaches. Sometimes we say that we like to minimize the number of global variables so that later on, when we're writing sophisticated programs with many programmers, that we don't want to burden other programmers with our variables if we don't need to. But the alternative here is to keep going back to the interface. So I think I'm going to sort of do it both ways to show. Well, I do it both ways. Yeah, I'll do it both ways just to show that it can be done both ways. So I'm going to alert here. Let me console log here. Once I confirm that it's true, then I'll just pick one way and just do it that way, and not all the way through. So I'm going to show the console log result so that it was remembered from what we did above. And then I'm also going to get it from the page. So I'm going to say console log. And then I'm going to say what? Document, go to the page and grab it. So I'm just going to show that there are these two ways. There's this variable way, this global variable way of remembering it, or there is this go to the interface and grab it again approach. And so double the number, divide by 13. I haven't done anything with divide by 13 in terms of display, but I have done things behind the scenes. So let me inspect and look at my console. Why am I? Can I get to my console? There's my console. 345, 345. So both of them were the same. So it's just these two approaches, the global variable approach of result, the go back to the interface approach. And sort of either way. Let me take the global approach. Okay, so I have the result and I want to divide it by 13 and display that. So I'm going to redefine results. I could use another variable, that is perfectly possible, or I can divide my result by 13 and then reassign that value back to result. So have a new result. And then I'm going to have, let's just now display it in document, get element by ID. What did I call it? Span SP divide 13. Spans work with inner HTML. And I'm going to set that equal to result. Okay, so this is the divide by 13. And I take 345, 345. I double it. I divide by 13 and I get 265, 265. And if you remember when we divided before, if there was a fractional part, it displayed. And part of this trick is that it does not. That is the trick, is that we're going to divide by a bunch of numbers and it's all going to go in evenly. So 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5 divided by 13 goes in evenly. Again, that's part of this trick that we're playing. And if it's nothing to do with 3, 4, 5. If I do 3, 4, 9, it's the same. It goes in evenly. Again, this is part of the trick in question. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is divide by 11. So I'm going to copy my divide by 13 and make it divide by 11. Divide by 11, divide the above by 11. I'm going to make it disabled. I'm going to call this function now divide by 11. I'm responsible for defining that. And then the span will be divide 11. And I'm going to copy this whole function because it's mostly the same. And then just change what I need to change. It didn't do my indenting very well, but let me right click and format the document, and then it sort of lines back up. And if it doesn't line back up, that's an indication that maybe I have some typo, like a missing parenthesis or curly bracket or something. So I'm not going to do this console logging anymore. We saw that that worked. I'm going to take my result and divide it by 11. And I forgot to do something and divide this by 11. Sorry, make that divide 11. But what is the problem here? Divide by 3, 4, 5. Divide by 13. I never enabled this button, and I also have this now in the wrong spot. So I have why did that happen? Why didn't the answer go here? I have to think about that one. But let's things first is let's enable that button, enable the second button, document, get element by ID. This is the button divide 11. And we want it to be enabled. We don't have an enabled property, we have a disabled property. So we set the disabled property to false. That's one thing we know. That was one problem we knew about. So here, double the number. Then we can divide by, but I'm putting this answer in the wrong spot. I'm calling the wrong function. That's what I'm doing. Okay, I have two. Now I finally see my problem is I have both my functions called divide 13. And so it ends up calling the later one. So let me, again, I say when I copy code, I have to be careful about changing everything I have to change. And I wasn't careful. So sometimes it does you better to retype everything, and sometimes, what it really does you well to do is to do a lot of checking as you go. Okay, almost done. And then again, that divided evenly, that's part of the trick. So I divided by 13, then I divided by 11. And the last part of the trick is to divide by 7. It also comes out evenly. And the same way here in 13, and I had to enable 11. Down here in 11, I have to Control V, enable 7. Now let's go back up there. Did I change that as I should? No, I didn't. It's the button now is divide by 7, and I'm dividing by 7, and I'm calling the function divide by 7, and my span is divide 7. And I put the 7 in the wrong spot there. There's the 7. And now I'm going to copy this function. And hopefully this time remember to change. Let's right click and format. And the function is divide 7. And I'm dividing the results by 7. And the span is 7, and there are no more buttons to worry about. So let's see where we're at in this game. 3, 4, 5. Let's change it. 3, 5, 4. Double it. 3, 4. 3, 5, 4. 3, 5, 4. Divide by 13. It goes in evenly. Divide by 11. It goes in evenly. Divide by 7. It goes in evenly, and gives us back the original number. That is the trick. Now what? You know me by now. I'm always worried, what if the user changes the data? So I'm going to add an on input. So there's one thing that the user can interact with other than pressing buttons, and that is this number input. And I'm going to call clear out. So I'm responsible for defining a clear out function. Clear out, parentheses, curlies. And what do I want to do? I want to take all of my spans and turn their inner HTML to dash, dash, dash. And I had four of them. And what was the first one? The first one was SP double, I believe. And then it was SP divide 13, SP divide 11. That clears out the answers. I'm not done yet, but let's see that working. Blah, 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 blah. And then I change the number, and there's the clearing. But I also want to, I have this problem now that I divided, I can work out of order here because I need to disable the buttons. To go back to the beginning, I need to disable buttons. So document will let me find out where I enable the buttons, and here's where I enable the button or enable the button, and let me use it and adjust it. Control C, Control V, let me do 13, make it true, and then copy that. And Control V and Control V and make it 11 and 7. And let's see how we're doing. So now I change the number, I start, and then if I change the number, it clears out anything and goes back to so it doesn't matter where I stop, it gets me back to the beginning with the disabling and the clearing both. So it's not just all clear out, it is this. So again, make sure you don't clear out the number itself. Don't clear out the text input. That's a standard problem that people tend to do. And if you're controlling the buttons with their disabled property, controlling the order in which they're pressed, then that is also something you have to work on and fix. Okay. I think that's what I wanted to show you with this example. So I thank you for your attention.